Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Power Platform Community Conference sponsor webinar series. I'm delighted to be joined today by our sponsor, Power Apps 911. I'm Ella Fernandez, head of the connections at BTechly, and today our speaker will walk us through 5 filtering patterns every app builder should know. But before we begin, a few housekeeping reminders. Participation in the live Q&A requires webinar registration. If you're joining us through the other channel, please register by scanning the QR code on the screen or by visiting btechly.com, select today's session, and enter your business email address. Once your registration is processed, you'll receive a calendar invite with a link to join the Q&A portion, as it's not going to be part of the live stream. If you don't have a Power Platform Community Conference pass yet for October 27 to 29 in Las Vegas, be sure to register today. Just scan the QR code on the screen or visit Power Platform Conf, that is powerplatformconf.com. And don't forget to use the discount code BOGO for buy one, get one free pass. And of course, please like, subscribe, and follow both BTechly and the Power Platform Community Conference. Without further ado, let's kick things off and enjoy today's learning experience.
How's it going, everybody? It is great to see you on the webinar. I am Ryan Johnston. I am a senior consultant with Power Apps 911, and we have got a lot of fun stuff to do today. So let's jump into our slide deck real quick. Give you just a quick intro to myself. As I said, I'm a senior consultant at Power Apps 911. Many of you know Power Apps 911 from our founder, Shane Young, the greatest of all YouTubers on the Power Platform, and so many of us know everything that we know about Power Platform from Shane. So I've been excited to work with Power Apps 911 for the last couple of years. I live in the mountains of central Colorado. I ride on a ranch. That's my family. We love to ski. We love to take care of horses and animals. And when I am not living the ranch farm life, I am living the IT life of developing custom Power Platform solutions. And as we go through this, if you hear anything that you like and want to learn more, you can always follow me on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel where I post about Power Apps UI UX solutions in particular, as well as on LinkedIn. And then, of course, if you see anything here where you're like, man, this looks really cool, I'm not sure that this is right up my alley, or I'd love to learn more, there's so much that you can find at powerapps911.com through our university training programs, and also for our solutions. But you didn't come here to hear a sales pitch. You came to learn how to filter like a pro, to create user interfaces and user experiences in Power Apps that are much more aligned with what users expect to see in modern software as a service applications. And I just want to show a couple of examples here. Amazon.com. We all are used to using Amazon, and if you search for Microsoft Clippy on Amazon, you are going to be presented with a list of products, but also a filtering mechanism that runs down the left side of the screen. And you can see it right here. This is what we would call sort of a sidebar solution for filtering. This is one way that people are used to filtering results in modern web apps. Here is Zillow. Zillow uses an across the top pattern of filtering, where each filter can be expanded to provide additional filtering options, but it's a horizontal across the top type of a filter. Another option that we often see is, well, here's another one where we have a combination of across the top, where we have our location, our date, and our travelers, kind of places the sort of the permanent searches, if you will, across the top. And then within this sort of main search, then on the left side are how we can really start to dial in the nuance of our filters. Going over to LinkedIn, something that we're all familiar with in the business world. They use a filter if you're searching for people, where you have some preset filters where you don't have a drop down where you select your your degrees of separation among contacts, you would just select first or second or third. And then these additional filters have drop downs, but these are what we would say are their most popular, but then you can click on all filters and load more. So these filter experiences are what people expect when they are using modern software. A software as a service type application, the type of application that a Power App is designed to be, or shall we say, to imitate. But too often when we get into these sorts of scenarios, this is what we end up with, is a, how do we say it? A stereotypical Canvas app that looks like the 1990s wanted its UI back, and we obliged. And unfortunately, we can come at this quite honestly as Power Apps developers. Many Power Apps developers are not trained software developers, or they come at software development maybe from a pro coding perspective where they never had to actually develop UI. So whether you're a citizen developer, maybe UI isn't your strong suit. Power Apps doesn't really help us a lot, because especially using classic controls, the default out of the box look is really quite ugly. And so what we're going to work on today is how do we take Power Apps using standard out of the box controls. And in the case of our design, we're not going to use a lot of modern controls, which I'll explain why. It's very important. And how do we make our Power Apps actually look like a proper modern app? And in fact, what we're going to teach you to do today is not to how to create this, because technically it works, technically it filters, but what we want is something much more like this, where we have a modern filtering strategy that makes a lot more sense and looks much more like a proper app. So let's jump into it. Let's first talk about the different, there's 5 filtering strategies starting from easiest to hardest to implement that we're going to show today. So the first one is this horizontal filters across the top. The second one adds this pre-selected, kind of like I was showing you with the degrees of separation on LinkedIn. We are able to sort of pre-select some of our most commonly used filters. And then our third option is going to be the same type of filtering, but in a sidebar. There's not a lot to this, but we're going to talk about why you might want to choose a sidebar-based filtering experience as opposed to a across the top one. We're going to talk about, now these last two are where we get really complex. And so stay with me in them, even if you're like, oh my gosh, this is like maybe beyond where I like to be. This is something that you can work on. You can try this particular one. I have an entire YouTube video dedicated to just this filtering strategy, where you can just build it yourself piece by piece. We'll go through it at a high level here, but where you can add filter pills. And you all have used filtering strategies where you are able to see the filter selection running right across the top. This one has the benefit of actually being able to wrap to multiple rows. And this is all out of the box Canvas apps. Nothing crazy about it. No PCF controls or something like that. And then the last one is a truly dynamic filtering strategy where it combines filter pills with being able to dynamically build your filter in real time with your data editing or data filtering as we go. So we're going to go into all of these, show you when you would want to use one over the other, and then how we go about actually building them. So I want to first just address, like, what's the point, right? What's really wrong with this way of doing filtering? And it's a much bigger conversation about UI UX in general. And so I'm going to touch on it very briefly. And then hopefully this will be a great springboard for you to maybe go do your own research on this user experience concept. Or you can always come to our Power Apps 911 Extreme Makeover Power Apps Edition class, where we would spend an entire day talking about UI and UX strategies within Canvas apps. And so maybe that's something you would like to be part of. But ultimately, the reason we invest in a quality user experience is because when you have a great UI a great user experience, a great user interface. No developer left behind. UI stands for user interface. UX stands for user experience. The UI is the practical way that we implement a good user experience. If you have a good UI, they're going to have a good experience. And when they have a good user experience, they are far more likely, your users are far more likely to adopt the app and use it in the first place. You are far more likely to get far fewer support calls, support tickets, emails about why something doesn't work or why somebody might not understand how something is supposed to work because it lacks, it's not intuitive. It is going to ensure that your app lives a longer life. If you roll something out that already feels dated or already feels old when it's brand new, it's not going to hold up with the test of time. But if you create something that's modern and streamlined and elegant, that's intuitive, that makes sense, that feels like what people are used to using in a modern SaaS world, your app is far more likely to to be used robustly and to be widely liked and to last. And all of these things are things that translate into time and money. And so taking a little extra time on the front end, one, to learn how to do this stuff, but then two, to take the extra time rather than having just a squared off drop down, but instead to create these lovely rounded ones where we have, rounded corners on both our boxes and our drop downs, even though, pro tip that we'll touch on here, classic combo boxes and drop downs don't have rounded corners. But guess what? These do. It's a hack and we make it work. And we do this so that people will use these apps and use them well. So let's first talk about now the filtering mechanisms that run across the top of the bar. When would we want to, well, let's first talk about some of the things that set this apart. First of all, we have icons in each of our options. We have a search bar, we have the client, we have the department, the software name, and the filter logic. So along with a descriptor hint text, which tells the user what this filter is, we also have icons that indicate it as well. We have consistency in our look and feel, right? We have the same rounded corner on everything. We have a nice little shadow behind it. We have consistent font size. Each of our hints has a 3-dot ellipsis after it. And so we have a nice consistent look and feel. So from a design perspective, that's what's going on here. And how we achieve that is really quite simple. I have a container. So we have a horizontal container with each of our controls. And you will forgive, I'm a huge proponent of really good naming conventions, but this is a tutorial that we're just kind of putting together as a proof of concept. So you will notice that my naming conventions are all over the place. So please do not judge that. I am judging myself for all of us right now. So we have a horizontal container, and then within that horizontal container, each one of our filters gets its own classic container, which has our icon and then the actual field. In the case of the combo boxes, the way that we get our hint text to be shifted over to the side and not right on top of the icon is just by setting the left padding of this particular combo box to 40 pixels. And so we're able to, shift that all over. And then we just drop an icon on top of it. We have a consistent color scheme going across here, our Power Apps 911 purple. And that's how this works. Now, I mentioned to you this really cool visual hack where we have given our combo boxes and drop downs a rounded corner. So if you have spent much time in the Power Platform in the Canvas App Designer, you'll know that there are certain classic controls that have rounded corners, such as our text label or our text box here. does have a border radius property. Now we're not using it because we're using just for consistency. The container that they live in is the one with the rounded corner and the border. But you could do that natively just with the text box itself. But you can't do that with combo boxes and drop downs and classic date pickers. And I'm using the word classic here. We're not talking about the modern control. You can with modern. And in just a moment, I'm going to explain to you why I'm not using a modern control. But if you are going to use a classic control, which is what we recommend and how we typically design at Power Apps 911, not universally, but it is something that needs to be seriously considered. What you do is you simply drop your combo box or drop down into a normal traditional container. Let the container have the border radius and the border itself, as you can see right here, and your drop shadow, and then have the combo box have none of those things, no attempt at border radius because you can't do it. It does need to have a border so that when you click on it, there's actually a little border around what you have, what the drop down surfaces. And you make it fill the entirety of the parent container. So in this case, a parent.width and a parent.height. And I add one because sometimes when it's rendered, I've sometimes seen it where it actually doesn't quite fill the container. I don't know. It's a weird bug. So I just add one to it and it always fills and looks good. Throughout this entire demo, you're going to see us using exclusively the classic controls. In my view, and I have built a lot of Canvas apps for a long time, the modern controls are simply not quite ready as of the time that we're, filming this in April of 2026. They are still not ready for prime time. Yesterday in particular, I had to work with a client to try to figure out why her modern date picker control would not accept a default selected date, a default date when she launched the screen. She had two date pickers, a from and a to. The from control would populate a default date. The to control would not, no matter what kind of shenanigans we threw at it. We would copy and paste the one control to the other. We would give them the exact same data. One worked, one wouldn't. And I run into this kind of thing all the time with modern controls, particularly when you're trying to reset the control or set a default of the control, or quite frankly, sometimes trying to pull its selected values. It is incredibly inconsistent. There's no rhyme or reason, but sometimes they just don't work. And when you're designing enterprise solutions, you simply cannot deal or work with things that simply don't always work. And so enter the classic controls, which quite frankly, always work. Let's say 99% of the time, they work versus maybe 80% of the time with some of the modern controls. They look great. They are spectacular. And where it really gets frustrating is with the date picker, because the old school date picker is horrific. You can't change its color. It's just garbage. But the modern date picker control is just horrendous. That was not even on my notes, not even in my list. That was bonus content, but might be worth the price of admission. Actually, that was free, so it's worth way more than the price of admission. Maybe the best part of the entire thing. So let's just talk real quick. We've talked about the UI, the design, the look and feel of this thing. And let's go into exactly what's going on in our filter mechanism behind the scenes, because this is going to be similar to the others. And I am in read-only mode, so give me just a second. Let me refresh this thing. Give me a second to grab a quick sip of my iced coffee for the afternoon. Oh man, nice iced caramel latte. I am a sucker for a good coffee. All right, come on, load up. I'm sure it's because we're streaming that it's going to take itself a sweet moment. So let's talk about what we're going to do here. When this loads and we get to looking at the filter mechanism, one of the very difficult things about creating robust filtering in Canvas apps, particularly if SharePoint is your data source. Let's step back a little bit. If you have any kind of a pro code background, and we're going to just try to refresh this one more time. If you have a pro code background, you will really be used to being able to create really robust, complex queries and kind of build the queries on demand. If you're used to being a web programmer where you can build a query in a query string or create a post request and really build these fancy custom queries, you will join me in being very annoyed at the limitations of being able to develop robust queries within Power Apps. In a Power Automate flow, you can create OData queries, right? But we cannot just manually craft queries in a Canvas app. We actually have to build these filtering queries, and dynamic queries are very difficult. And so what we have to do is, it's not like I could do something where I just select, I add select everything that's in this dropdown when there's something in the dropdown. I have to account within the query for there being nothing selected or there being something selected. And what I see a lot of beginner Power Apps developers do is they'll do something like this. They'll do something in their filter where they'll say, if not is blank, whatever our, we'll just say dot selected here. So not is blank, then we're going to search on client in such and such selected items, something like this. And you will see right off the bat that this entire thing makes the whole query non-delegable, because you cannot put a condition, an if statement. You can put conditions, but you can't put an if statement inside of a filter or a lookup and it be fully delegable. If you if you know that your data set's never going to be over 2,000 records, you could do this, but there's such a better way, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And that is, and you will note there is a delegation issue here. I'll come back to that. I'll just say right now, if this were a Dataverse table that we were going after, we're just doing this against SharePoint, this would not be a problem with delegation, which is why I use this pattern, because so many of our enterprise solutions are Dataverse, but I'll tell you what you would have to do in SharePoint to make this work. But what we do is kind of a trick. This achieves the same thing functionally as this, where it says, hey, if the selected dropdown, the selected combo box is, if there is nothing selected, then only show where client name is among the combo box's selected items. In this case, what we do is say, look, only one of two conditions are going to be true here. Either the combo box.selected.value is blank, which if this is true, it's just going to return true, which tells the filter, give me everything. Or the client name column, the value in client name is going to be among the combo box's selected items. Only one of those can be true at the same time, because if the client name is in the selected items, that means there is a selected item. If it's not, then this is blank and it's just going to return everything. And so we create this pattern of just saying, look, either the particular combo box, the selection is blank, or the column we care about is among those selected items in the combo box. Now, the in operator is not delegable in SharePoint. However, against text columns and a few other columns, it is fully delegable in Dataverse. And so that's why I wanted to show you this pattern. But understand that the way I have it crafted here, it doesn't work. Typically in SharePoint, I'm often not able to do a multi-select like this. What I would have to do is I would have to say something like client name equals the combo box dot selected. Now this doesn't work just because of the record type. We do selected dot value. So this is fully delegable. This will work. And as long as I have set my combo box to allow multiple selections being false, this works. But what I am going to be showing you today is how we handle multiple selections. And so even though I know this is a non-delegable query, and you can see the delegation warning now just moves down a row, we're going to go ahead and stick with this non-delegable query. It's really important that we understand delegation, right? That we understand when we may not get all the results that we're expecting. And it is incredibly important that we are responsible about these delegation things. Don't ignore them, but also know the rules yourself, because Power Apps, especially if you have nested filters or you put a filter inside of a with statement, it will not always give you the yellow squiggly. All right, enough of the architecture of a filter. Let's keep moving on to UI. So let me check my notes here. Let's see. Let's go on to our next filter strategy. The next filter is, we didn't even show this. Let's show this in action where we have a search. We'll say legal, maybe. I think I have that legal department. Yeah, so it'll search on all of our text columns. And then our client is Acme. And let's see, we'll grab a department. What's a department? Well, we already searched on legal, so we'll just say legal. And then the software is our legacy system. And so you can see all of these filters can stack together to achieve our filter strategy. One thing I didn't show you was how we have this little clear filter pill. A great UX solution is if somebody wants to clear these filters, you don't make them go up here and deselect, especially let's say that they've selected, 2 or 3 options. You don't want them to have to go in and unselect all these. You put this little clear in here. You could also have like a clear all over on the side that just clears all of them. And the way that works is really simple. It just resets that particular box. If you had a clear all, you can maybe set a clear variable, a reset variable, and then to true and then right back to false again. And you would put that in the reset property like I have here, because on my screen load, I do reset everything. And so you could do a clear all and use that strategy. Each of these little clear buttons is only visible when there is something selected in these combo boxes. Let's go on now. One of the things that is very helpful, kind of like what I showed in the slide here with the with LinkedIn, is that if you have a really common scenario that you want to filter on, you will make it just a clickable option up top. So we're all used to on LinkedIn or other, software solutions like an Outlook, where you can click on your unread messages, your focused, or other, maybe depending on how your nomenclature is, where if you want to filter on a very common thing, you might throw that in as a specific option. And that's really helpful just for one click, right? When we talk about user design and experiences and interfaces, one of the things we're often talking about is how do we reduce clicks? How do we reduce the number of interactions that the person has to have in order to achieve what they are looking for? So in this case, we have our other filters across the top here. And of course, you could put as many as you want to fit, but I still just want it all to fit nicely on one row. And then I have these specific ones where I can sort on my active, my deprecated, and my broken status items. You'll note that I have a count that goes along with it, and it automatically updates itself based on the other filters I have also selected. So I could select these filters, and then I have, an updated count, and I can further drill down on them. Let's just show a couple of things going on here. And the way that we do our selection is I have a context variable called the LOC stands for local. That's what I name all my context variables. And it's the particular selected filter. It's either all, or it is active or deprecated. And then in my filter, it's just like what we saw up above, but then I have another strategy, right? Just like the other one, I either have the selected filter is active and the status text equals active, or it's deprecated and the status text is deprecated, etc. Or it's just all, and there's no other condition, because that just returns true, which tells the filter, just give me everything that also fits with this particular set of drop-down filters. So it's a very nice little way to preset things. And then, of course, we have our counts. And so if we look at the actual text in here, we count the rows where it's basically the same filter that we have on items, just without the little clicked selection. It honors the selections from the dropdowns and just counts those rows. Now, we have a delegation warning on all of this, because count rows in this context, because of our in, is not delegable. And in some contexts, count rows is not delegable at all for certain SharePoint implementations. So know your count rows, know where it's delegable and where it's not. Let's say that you're in a situation where you've just got to get some kind of account, even if it isn't delegable. You could do something where if it counts to the 2,000, which is going to be your max records, you could always just say 2,000 plus in your count. If you have to get an actual real count on a filter that just simply isn't delegable, you might do something with Power Automate. You might create a count there. There's ways around it, but that would be outside the scope of this particular webinar. So we have our pills across the top, or not our pills. We have our pre-selects across the top, along with drop downs. Now, what is another way we present this? We've, to this point, only talked about doing filter UI across the top. But what about when we want it to be on the side, right? On our little representations here, our hotels.com has its main filter along the side. And then Amazon runs its filter along the side. Why do you want to put a bar across the side? Well, the reason that we do sidebars is I would say a couple of reasons. The first would be when you have more filters than can fit across the top. I mean, look at Amazon, right? You've got your shipping, your delivery, your reviews, your conditions, your deals, your seller, your departments. And then of course, this scrolls down quite a ways. And depending on like the type of product you're looking at, there might be colors or sizes or styles or that sort of thing. Lots and lots of filters, and there's no way that can fit across the top. And so this scroll bar can scroll and your filters will go on down. This is especially true on like hotels.com, right? There's like a whole pricing bar and all sorts of stuff in there that you can add to the filters. So when you need more filters than you can fit across the top, a sidebar filter makes sense. The other reason that you would do that is when filtering is a prime use case of that particular screen. So if you are searching for your ideal Maui vacation, you very well may kind of be constantly tweaking and clicking back and forth and dialing in your filter strategy. You may select your location and then you're going to start playing with the minimum, maximum pricing values, and really working that in detail. If filtering is going to be kind of a main character of your screen experience, sidebar filters really make sense because, as you can see, it takes up quite a bit more real estate, but it's also quite a bit more prominent on the screen. Another reason that you might do it is if your filter contents, like the actual text of these drop downs, was longer. So, in my case, these are fairly short company names, right? But let's say that I had much longer names. I mean, even right here, these little funny software names are a bit long. They're a bit lengthy. And if you look at our previous screen, it has to actually wrap to another row in the dropdown. Now, may not be a big deal, but you may run into a scenario where you're going to want to have a little bit more real estate for each one of these filters. So there's no hard and fast rule here. These are questions you have to ask. This is where testing can be so valuable. Maybe ask some of your users who are going to use this app, how would you be using this screen? Make sure your stakeholders are involved and you have a really good understanding of how all of this is going to work, so you can pick how you want to present your filtering mechanism. But if there's one takeaway here, is I hope that you're seeing that, like, being intentional about the filter experience is really, really key. Don't just throw drop downs, onto your screen. Don't just, stack a bunch of stuff like our old, 1990s version. Think about the user experience and how they're going to use this app and what you think is going to be best. Planning ahead is the key. The whole thing, if you fail to plan, then just plan to fail. You're either going to expend the effort on the front end in your design strategy, or you're going to expend it on the back end when you're going around and fixing things and answering support requests, or God forbid, having to rebuild the whole app way sooner than you ought to because people just don't use it. So think about these things, and you will have a much better time of it. All right. We're going to present for another 10 or 15 minutes here before we go to our Q&A, but now I want to get to our most complex filters. These are the ones that I have the most fun with. They have got some really crazy power effects that you may have never seen before, but I want you to stick with me. I'm going to not get too deep into the weeds, but let's nerd out just a little bit, and then I will show you how you can watch a full video on exactly how to do this once we get to the end of the webinar. So stick around for that. So our filter pills. The first thing I want to highlight is that whether or not you implement the filter pills solution, you certainly could implement the filter sidebar. So there are plenty of things, like, for example, when we look at LinkedIn over here, there's this all filters. Now, if you click on all filters, it opens a modal, a pop-up, if you will, that presents a whole slew of additional filters. And then it goes away once you've selected it, because Microsoft has decided, the LinkedIn people have decided that, we just want to keep the screen nice and clean, nice and simple. And we're going to surface the most popular filters, but we're going to have another button to open up the screen with more of them if you want. And so that's really what we're presenting here. Like, you could have your top filters here, or you could have some of those pre-selects here, and then just have something that says more filters or all filters. And when you click on it, it's very, very simple. We simply have a container that sits on top of our main screen. So this is our main screen right here. We have this con filters sitting on top, and it's very simple. It just has a visibility where if this local context variable filters visible is true, then it's visible. If it's false, I'll just say not, the opposite, then it isn't visible. And it's such a simple little thing. And inside of that is this selection of containers. I don't have this in a vertical container. It would probably make much more sense to be in a vertical container, because then all the spacing is handled automatically for you. I have a timer here. You can ignore that, because at one time I actually had this thing kind of slide in and fade in and do some cool eye candy stuff. And I don't know, I just find that it can be a little laggy sometimes. Animating in Canvas apps is, it is what it is. But the point is, you can do all sorts of fun things with this. Now, you could then have people select, and just like you see here, the filtering in the let's grab one that is actually happening. What is this? Our software name, we'll do Database Query Wizard. Okay. The gallery here is filtering in real time. And in fact, the gallery doesn't know anything about or give a flip about these little lozenges, or pills as they're called in the UI world. These are purely visual and purely for the user to know what is being filtered. This gallery is filtering just like the drop downs and combo boxes on the other screens. It's just looking at what's selected and filtering accordingly. So you could implement this strategy, the sidebar, the pop-out sidebar, without even worrying about this. The problem is, if you do the filter sidebar and then they close it, how do they know what's actually filtered? How do they know what are the things going on? And that is where these little pills come in handy. And of course, I've enhanced it where you could do multiple items. It shows you all of them, and it can even wrap to the next row. Well, let's see. Let's do one where it goes ahead and wraps to the next row. Okay. So let's talk about what's happening here. The king of all of these of this strategy is a little collection that we call Cole filters. So on change of each one of these drop downs, we populate a filter. We populate a collection with the selected filters. And basically, I'll just walk through this one very quickly here. And again, I'll show you how to learn more if you want to. But bottom line is, we're basically saying, hey, look, if we use a with statement, which I love using with. It keeps us from having to write this lookup like several times. Because look, with filter record, we do it 3 times here. So I don't want to put this lookup in 3 times. I just do a with statement here. And by using this with client name, I can literally copy and paste this to my other combo boxes. And all I have to do is change this text right here. And this on change works for all of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to check and say, hey, is the client name filter already, do we already have a selection for client name? If we do, then we're going to patch and update that with the new properties, which client names were selected. If there isn't already a client name, then this is going to be blank, and we're going to create a new record in our filters collection with the filter name. We are going to create a properties value, which is this actual text string that we see in the filter pill. Where we're just going to concatenate the selections with a comma in between them. And then we're going to set a sort order. And this is just a big coalesce statement that basically says, hey, it's either going to be the order after the last item that is there. So if there's already 2 pills, then the order is 3. But if there's no pills, then it's just going to be, order number 1. And so that's what's building here. We're building this collection. And as you can see, we have this little data schema here where we have the filter name. Is not will be for the next screen. So don't worry about that for right now. The order, you'll see one of them has 999, and that's the clear filters button. We always have a clear filters button. We always want it at the end. And so in the on visible of the screen, we add a clear filters filter with an order that's way bigger than would ever get used. And then we have our properties, and with I don't actually use anymore, so you can ignore that. And then we come over here. Now, your initial thought might be, oh, this should just be like a gallery, right? Well, this is the problem. You can do horizontal galleries, but unlike a vertical gallery where you can do a flexible height gallery, there is no flexible width horizontal gallery. And as you can see with our filter pills, they're all different sizes based on whatever the text is inside them. And so we have to do a pretty hacky thing. Some of this you could visually, you could create this using a bunch of spans in an HTML text control. The problem is HTML text controls aren't, we can't create like clickable actions. So this idea of being able to come in here and click any of these and clear that filter, we couldn't do with an HTML text control. So instead, we do this hacky kind of thing. And let me show you what it is. We have a single horizontal container that in my case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 types of things that we can filter on, which means that since I string these all together, the most lozenges or pills that I could ever have is 5. 4 for my 4 options, and then a 5th one for my clear filter. And so what I've done is I've created inside this horizontal container, I've created 5 individual containers. And each one of these is for one of the filter pills. They're not set to a particular one. It's just whichever one's first is going to be job filter 1. Whichever one's second is job filter 2, 3, 4, etc. And then the reset one is always last. And the way that this works is I have a label inside each one of them, which has the order. So label 2 has order 2. This one has 1. This one says 3 and 4. And I just reference that. It's kind of a poor man's way to manage the data, like a this item.order, but it's not a gallery, so I can't do that. So I just reference the number in this label, and it makes my copy and paste real easy. And then I have a label where I build the text for the label. I look up the filter where the order matches the order for that particular filter, and I write it all up. And that's just it's a big looking statement, but it's actually very boring. It just, says whatever the name of the filter is and then the string that goes with it. And where the real magic of this comes in is in how we set the width, because the keen-eyed Power Apps developer will recognize that there is no auto width feature of a label. There's auto height. Thank you, Microsoft, for giving us that, but there is no auto width. And so how do we dynamically set the width of these labels inside this horizontal container that, by the way, each of these what do you call these containers has a width turned on that is, basically allows its size to be flexible. The way that we do that is a lovely hack using the HTML text control. So I'm going to do something here. I'm going to change the height here to 300. And stick with me. If some of this is too complicated, again, I'm going to show you how to do it. Or this is always one where you could, pick up the phone, shoot us an email over at PowerApps 911, and we would be happy to help you with this. Maybe you've got everything else down, but you're like, I want PowerApps 911 to help me make these lozenges, these pills, or implement one of these little controls. Give us a call. We do everything from huge projects that are hundreds and hundreds of hours and, 6 figures and massive projects to, a couple of hours for us to pop in and either walk you through how to do it or just take it on and do it for you. So you can always reach out to us and we're happy to help with that. But in this case, if you want to do it, what we've done here is I'm going to change this height to 300. You will see hanging out is our text turned sideways, and it's kind of hidden in there. Let me see if, well, that's because I've got my rounded turned on. Let's change our border radius. Oh gosh, it's all dynamic. So I want to change them all, but you can see that HTML text control is hanging out there. The text for our label is the text for our control. HTML text has an auto height function, and whatever the height is that PowerApps renders is the height that we will get when we do, HTML auto height dot height. So what we've done here is we have created a div inside of the HTML text where these particular features are necessary, particularly the inline block, the transform, rotate, and origin, the no wrap feature, are necessary to basically take our text and to rotate it 90 degrees. The font size and style and padding needs to match exactly what your label is so that you can set your label's width to the HTML text controls height, plus whatever padding you've added to your control. And by doing this, you can determine the width and have a dynamic width of this control. I know it's quite hacky. Now, you'll notice that control is living like down below, and that is because in order for this hack to work, the HTML text control must be visible. Now, you don't actually have to see it, but it has to be marked visible. If I turn this off and I make this thing go away and try to bring it back, it will not recalculate the height or the width properly. So the way we achieve this is by just setting our height here to 25 pixels and setting the Y value of our HTML text at like 40, right? So it's technically visible, but it's clipped, right? It's completely off the canvas and it can't be seen, but the logic calculates and the strategy works. So let me come back in here. We'll change our height back to 25 before I forget. And let's go. Now, we also talked about the fact that this thing is going to wrap to multiple rows. And the way we achieve that is by setting the wrap setting to on. And so that's going to cause any of these to just wrap around to the next. The only key is that we just have to change the height of this thing based on whether or not it is wrapped. So we just track the Y value of the clear filters container, and PowerApps is smart enough to know that when this thing wraps, the Y value actually goes to 60, or excuse me, to like 30 or 35 or whatever it is. And so basically we say, look, if the Y value is greater than 0, that is, if it's not just right on the first row, then our height's going to be 60. Otherwise, our height is 30. And right now, it's designed to only handle 2 rows, but you could update this logic to handle as many rows as you felt could be possible. The one area where this doesn't work is like if I selected enough logic things that this one pill would need to span a row, you would end up with the whole pill would be down on the second row. And you might not want that. You want it to wrap and do some things. That's really, now we're getting really complex. And so this is a good solution for 99% of scenarios. Now, I know this was a lot. This was a lot of code and a lot of things going on here. which by the way, if you click one of these clears, all it does is just removes that particular filter from our Kohl filters collection. This removes all of them. But this is a really, really cool strategy. The same strategy can be applied for our very last demo, which I'm just going to show you how it works and just give you the high level. And you're welcome to reach out to us at PowerApps 911. I'd be happy to walk through any of this with you. If you want to deep dive any of this, we can talk about it. If you wanted to help you implement it or any kind of cool user interface strategies in your own apps, we would love to talk to you about that. Either teach you how to do it, show you how to do it, walk with you through it, how to do it, or just do it for you. Or build the whole app. It doesn't matter. We'd love to talk to you. But this is like the true SaaS strategy where we add a filter, select our client, and that's going to be Acme Corp. We're going to say that the software name is not Excel with macros. You'll note that each time I add a filter, whichever filter I've already selected is no longer available in the list. And I'm going to go operations here, and we'll say filter logic is starts with A. So our filter pills, it's the exact same filter pill strategy, but the method by which I select those filters is much different. You'll notice I have all of my filters selected, so my ad is no longer available. Now ad is back. I can hide my filter row if my screen real estate is really a big deal. This is like true SaaS at its finest in a Canvas app. And the way that we're achieving this is it's actually simpler than you might think. And that is, I have a filter builder that simply tracks the X position of the ad filter control, the container, and positions itself wherever the X value is of this ad filter. It has 4 items in it, and each of these is its own button. The visibility of the button is based on whether or not that particular filter exists in our Kohl filters collection. So if it exists already, then it's not visible. If it doesn't exist, then it is visible. And then when you click on one of these, it surfaces or makes visible another container, which is our subfilter builder. We have our is and is not. And if something is not, we use the same exact on change that we do with the filters on the previous screen. The only difference is that in addition to our text that we add, we also add this is not property, so that in our filter code, we have another option gets thrown in there where instead of it saying is equal to this particular item, we say is not equal to. Now you'll notice that this one only allows me to select a single item. And that is because while we can do in for filtering and it's delegable in Dataverse, doing not in is a very different scenario. And so rather than getting into that, just know that this strategy, anytime you're going to have an is not, becomes a lot more challenging to write that filter in a delegable way when you're doing is not. Lots of other ways, there's ways to do it, there's ways to work around it, but just understand that that's kind of where we're at. So this is just a different way of presenting the same kind of a thing. The filter pills are still there, but this is a really, really elegant way to do this. Now, I'm done here. In just a second, I'm going to hand it back over to our team for just a brief word, and then we're going to go to some Q&A. So again, if you have registered for the actual webinar, you'll be able to come into the Q&A. We'd love to have you for that for as long as you guys want to ask some questions. But really, where we're going with this at the end of the day is we want you to understand how important it is to really give attention to your user interfaces, to get away from this kind of stuff and instead getting to something that looks beautiful, that looks like a modern SaaS app. And understanding that there's tremendous value in doing it. It's going to aid your adoption. It's going to enhance the longevity of your apps. And it's really important that you focus on these things. If you would like to know how to do that whole filter pill thing in great detail, I have on my YouTube channel a video that is dedicated purely to how to do the filter pills. And so feel free to check me out on Power Platform Ryan on YouTube. And also you could scan the QR code. Also follow me on LinkedIn if you want to know when I do post additional things. I also do content on Shane Young's channel. So be sure to get out there and check out Shane's channel. He and I just collaborated a few weeks ago on a really wild implementation of Apple style liquid glass in Canvas apps. We've built PCF controls using AI. There's all sorts of stuff we've got going on Shane's YouTube channel. Go check us out there. And yeah, but then if you really want to dive deeper, go to powerapps911.com, where we are happy to share with you all of our consulting options. We will build apps for you. We will build flows for you. Anything and everything in the Power Platform world. We are at the cutting edge of everything going on in Copilot and AI, whether it's agent building or implementing Copilot in your existing apps or new apps. Be sure you check us out. And then if you want to learn more, Shane Young is the OG when it comes to Power Platform training, and Power Apps 911 is still at the absolute forefront and the finest training materials that you can get. I know I'm biased, but this is how I learned, and now I'm on the team here. I can tell you it's the best training out there as one who went through it to become a Power Platform professional. Go to Power Platform University. You can get there from powerapps911.com. We would love to talk to you, and you'll see Mo's contact down here. She's been hiding out in the background of this webinar. Mo is our sales professional, and she would love to talk to you about how you can take your Power Platform projects to the next level, or help you maybe get right off the ground. We would be absolutely delighted to help you out. Thank you so much for being a part of the webinar. Stay around here. We're going to have our Q&A coming up in just a moment if you are a registered participant. But otherwise, Ella, I'll hand it back over to you to close us out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan, for that. And it was such a vibrant discussion. Why don't we put Mo just really briefly on the screen so that everyone can see how beautiful she is? There you go. Hi, Mo.
Oh, thanks, Ella. It's nice to connect with everybody. Great job, Ryan.
Awesome, awesome. Well, to everyone watching on the live stream, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be wrapping it up shortly. Be sure to secure your spot at the Power Platform Community Conference happening October 27th to 29th in Las Vegas. You can register by scanning the QR code on your screen or by visiting powerplatformconf.com. Don't forget to use the discount code BOGO for a buy one, get one free pass. Now, again, if you'd like to participate in the live Q&A with Ryan, please make sure you join us using the link provided in your calendar invite. Bye, all.